Thank you for spending time with us at home with Core Women in Los Angeles. This is a film about women and empowerment, and we're going to be talking today about what that means to us. And so I'd like to get started, and I'd like to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Ali Alanius. I live here in Los Angeles. I'm an author as well as an entrepreneur and the CEO of a company called Unsugarcoated. And yeah, I'm excited to be here tonight. What an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Irwin. I also live in Los Angeles. I'm a novelist, and I released my debut novel last year called Address the Color of the Sky, which has won 7 book awards. So it's been very exciting, and I'm honored to be here and to be a part of women empowerment.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I'm Erin Sanchez. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I'm a writer, storyteller, and a business coach. I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to just talking with all of you ladies about empowerment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin.
And I'm Catherine Shaw. I'm a comedy writer and wine drinker. I'm very excited to be here with all of you, and I hope to be writing more and more.
Thank you, Catherine.
And I'm Trisha Greenlee. I'm born and raised and still living here in Los Angeles, California. And I'm a commercial real estate attorney, so wow, I seem really boring after hearing all that. But I'm excited to be doing this with you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us at home with Core Women. My name is Dr. Summer Watson, and today we're going to be talking about women and empowerment. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off with a question regarding how each of you feel empowered as women. Who wants to start off?
I'll start up since
Okay.
no. Fine, no. How I feel empowered as a woman is just by being able to be enlightened as a woman as you grow older and as you have more experiences. Because everything that I was taught to be a woman when I was younger, I'm finding that half of it wasn't really true. And it really didn't benefit me as much as I thought it would. So I think it's empowering to learn from other women, to teach other women, this relationship. I think that's what's been empowering to me as a woman.
Great.
And I can honestly say that for me, seeing myself go through multiple different types of careers and chasing different dreams and believing that there's nothing I can't do, and I don't think I could have done that without my mom, who was a role model and a pioneer in her industry as a woman. And I think that teaching women, you can do it, you can try anything, you can, even in a male-oriented business or industry, you can break through these barriers. And I just feel really excited that I've been able to do different things, and now as a writer, starting really late in my life and seeing success. So that's empowering.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like empowerment to me has just been very similar. It's about, I grew up in a very, impoverished area from a family that didn't have any money. And for me, it's just been, expanding every time I had a chance to expand my worldview and kind of set an intention and just go for it. And then feeling like anything is possible has been very empowering. And then having the support of other women who have been, right there saying, yes, you can do it.
Right. Great points, Erin. Absolutely.
So when I was younger, I actually found a lot of solace in autobiographies. I sought out stories from women who went through trauma, alcoholism, and that's what I really clung on to. And then as I got older, I was able to find a group of women who we could support each other, and whenever we felt unsure or that we were screwing up, we can really lean on each other. So it has evolved from just kind of book-based to 3D person in front of your face, but it's been working, and in the years I feel more empowered.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's an interesting question for me, because sometimes I feel like my empowerment as a woman is sometimes being jeopardized on a daily basis. But it's through things like this where we're getting together and we're speaking and we're telling people our stories, and that we're self-made women,
Right.
but that we're not entirely self-made. We're also, the community helps us,
Right.
is really something that helps me personally. kind of feel that empowerment.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I want to talk a little bit about Core Women and how this all came about. And so I was sitting with some friends, and we are in Newport Beach, and right now I live in the DC area, and I really needed to just get away. I needed to come back home to California and just kind of bond with my sisters. And as I was doing that, I was looking around the room as they talked, and it was just so authentic and genuine, and it filled my heart and soul with happiness and joy. And I thought to myself, does every woman have this?
Right.
Does every woman have a network of friends that they can rely on, they can trust, that they've been around, whether it's you've been friends for a year, 6 months to 20 years? Do they have a core group of women where they feel at home? So the tagline for Core Women is the unique home for the hearts and souls of women, right? So I really wanted to bring that to community so that this could be a home, a unique home also for other women. Because prior to creating Core Women, what I decided to do was do a survey. And I asked women, when I did the survey, how many of you feel embraced by other women socially? And upwards towards 40% said they didn't.
Right.
They did not. And that was impacting for me. And then when I looked at the survey and I asked another question, I asked, how many of you have a female mentor that you can go to in your job or at work or whatever the case may be? Do you have a mentor? And 37% said no. Okay. And I'm thinking, we can do better than this. We can do better than this. Why are we not embracing other women? So really, go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, I feel like some of them need to see the value of it.
Right.
I know I got married, I have my kids, and I have my friends and family, but I really didn't have a huge network. And then I ended up getting cancer. Remember the first year, I didn't tell anyone. I was like, oh, I'm going to deal with this by myself. I'm strong. And I remember the doctor handed me a prescription for antidepressants, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to need that. And then a year later, I'm like, no, give it here. And I remember being in a hospital bed, and I was just a shell of who I am today. And I remember going on my laptop, which was all I had, and a Wi-Fi network, and I opened up Facebook.
Right.
And I put in there, cancer, women with cancer.
Right.
And what came back was a community of amazing women who helped me pick me up, literally off of that hospital bed,
Right.
and get me to move forward.
Right.
And I think it's as women, when we go through critical moments in our life, we realize, and even when I went through my divorce, the women that rallied around me, they picked me up on those days. I had problems picking up my own self.
Right.
So I think it's when we need it, that's when
Right.
we realize the value of it.
I think that's a great point in that we're all successful, and part of that success, we're driven and we're
Right.
independent women.
Right.
And that, in a way, isolates us.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until
Yeah.
something
Right. What a great
happens
point.
to you
Right.
where
Right.
you kind of need that community, you often don't reach out.
Right.
I
So
also think toxic women, and it's taken me a long time to identify toxic women and identify unhealthy friendships, and to clear them out. And when you have that in your life as a woman, it can be extremely painful. And I think the older that I've gotten, I've been able to say, these are the kind of people I want to be around. These are the kind of women I want to surround myself with, and I can't have the toxic situation anymore. I don't know if any of you ever had toxic women in your life.
Oh, yeah. We
I had to break up with a girl.
Right.
I love you, baby.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
And we've all had those, I think, right? We've all had those.
And it's a kind of a hard thing to do, but
It is.
it
It is.
has to be done.
All really great points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing, and I think, kind of to piggyback on what you said, Tricia, we pull from, those networks when we need them. But what happens when we don't have those networks at all?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when somebody's feeling isolated and they don't have somebody to go to? And that's where I feel like Core Women is really crucial, because we need to put ourselves out there and say, hey, I embrace you. You matter to me.
And you know what?
I love
Can I
that.
say something?
Yeah.
This was actually, I had to share this because the other night I actually was with another organization, domestic abuse women
Mhm.
and victims of sexual assaults and rape and whatnot. And somebody turned to me and said, and now this is going to sound like I'm being very self-centered, but you want this to be authentic, right? And I'm like,
yeah. I want
I'm
this
sorry.
to be,
No, because
yeah,
it's really poignant
very
to me. I
authentic.
need to tell you why. This woman who was a victim, she was living at the shelter, and she was very sweet. We had this great conversation. And then when I told her I was a victim myself of domestic abuse, she turned to me and she says, I don't mean this to sound bad, but it's so nice to know that pretty women get hit too, or go through what we go through.
Yeah.
She didn't mean it in a
Yeah.
malicious way at all. But
Right.
what she did was put me in a category.
Right.
And I'm going to say that as a woman myself, like if the times that women didn't embrace me, it was always because they weren't giving me the opportunity to get to know me, or they had just put me in a category without getting to know me, getting to know my story, getting to know me.
Your character.
And
Your
we do
person,
that.
who
We
you
look
are.
at someone and we shouldn't, and I think
Right.
that's one barrier we
We
should
don't
get
know
over,
everyone's
because
story.
you never know
Right.
someone's story. Don't judge a book by
Yeah,
its
right.
cover, said all the writers.
There's always a story.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
yeah.
You're absolutely right. And again, all the participants here, I've had an opportunity to talk to you all. So I know a little bit about your stories, and I know that you have stories that are important to tell. And that's exactly why you're here with me, because you're important women, you're important to me, and I want to embrace you, and I want other people to hear what you have to say, because it's important to me.
And same to you. We love you
Yeah.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually really love, just as a side note, the mission of Core Women, because of one thing that I hear again and again from women that are already, out of school or whatever is it's so hard to make friends as an adult.
It really
It's
is.
so hard to
Especially
find your
female,
circle, right?
yeah.
Especially female. And I think that, my monthly get-togethers with Catherine and our other friend Rachel is super important, because how did that friendship come about? It was from an environment that put us together, graduate school,
Right.
where you had the opportunity to make friends again as an adult. So it's
Right.
just an avenue to create those
Mhm.
adult friendships that are so hard to be like, will you be my
And-
friend?
Right.
Let's hang
For
out.
people
you
that
know?
like me, I don't have, both my parents have passed away. I have all boys. I don't have a large group of female friends, and I, as a writer, can isolate myself. I can get really depressed sometimes if I start to get too isolated. And you want friends that are going to be like, Jen, I haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
What are
Right.
you doing?
Out
Come
here.
out.
Right.
Force you to come out and
Right.
get out of that little dark place that I can go to, and
Exactly. Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I was going to also say, bouncing off, I love what you shared, because when I was growing up, I grew up in a very impoverished area, but I was the model student. I never caused any problems. So when there was domestic violence going on in my house, I actually had a counselor just ask me very briefly why I was gone for a week from school. And because I was really good at giving people what they wanted, no one called CPS on my family, and they should have, because I demonstrated a good kid.
Right.
And that was actually a situation like, no, I need help, my family needs help. And we were very isolated, so we didn't have a network.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you
So-
learned to brush things under the rug.
Oh,
and just
yeah.
put that facade
Yep,
out there,
you
which
either
I did
throw it
as
away,
well.
you use humor, which I have
Yes.
to watch myself.
Right.
Yeah.
To compensate for right how you're hurting, and again, that's why I went back to some people don't have those networks, so it's incumbent upon us as women in community to reach out and to embrace. And this is what that is all about, is to talk about these things, because for some of us it can be more difficult to reach out. We are busy, and one of the things in regards to CORE that I like to talk about is what that is an acronym for. So the K is for kinetic. How do we kinetic? That means movement. So how do we, through our movement, how do we connect with other people? How do we connect with other women? We're always going, right? Are we always going fast, right? And then, how do we organically communicate with others, right? And then how do we respectfully, integrate and learn from other people, other women, and then how do we empower and inspire and lift each other up?
Okay, so you said something. You one of the things that I noticed, and I have to make this little comment, because when we talk about networking and
Right.
women and entrepreneurs, I think that a lot of people don't realize networking is also part of success and growing and platform and all of that. I think it's pretty, one thing I see when women do, a lot of women start, whether it's a wrap or whether it's Herbalife or whether it's, you know,
Yeah,
any
right.
of these companies.
direct
Actually, let me
sales.
just say direct sales.
Direct
marketing,
sales,
exactly.
right, right.
I'm not promoting anything.
That's okay, direct
But what I'm saying is there's true benefit to people who find a way. Like some of these women
Oh,
are at home
absolutely.
with children and they're reaching out to other people.
Right.
And what do a lot of times women people, oh, I don't want that email. If you're asking me
Right.
to buy something, I get an email from somebody saying, you know, I just started a business and I'd like to share some information. I'm like, you know what, I might not be able to be able to get it. I'm fine with you sharing me your information. And all I can say is bravo to you for reaching out. Thank you.
Right.
Because you know what, a closed mouth doesn't get fed in life.
Right.
And if we don't support other people and other women who are trying to strive for something, whether it's from their kitchen or, you know, Fifth Avenue,
Right.
then we're not really empowering other women, are we? So that's something that when you talk about how do we, I mean, I know that's just one little,
Right.
I mean, maybe if we change our mindset, because when we deal with marketing and social media, they go into what people want and
Right.
they don't like being sold to. And I understand
Right.
that. But what you're also doing is shutting down somebody else's opportunity to grow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'd like to just share. I read an article just recently about how women who are trying to make it in a particular profession will think that there's only a limited number of spaces in that profession for women. Men don't come to anything with that perspective.
Yeah,
They just think they're going to be what they're going to be.
Right.
But there's only room for a certain number of women. And so we hold back from supporting other women to do that, to be authors, to be attorneys.
Right.
And we may not mentor them the way that they deserve to be mentored and should be mentored.
Right.
And that really needs to change. And I think that goes along with what you just said.
And I think you're absolutely right. So I call that, what you had just mentioned, I call that split the vote theory. And I call it that because a lot of times, you know, you see this candidate, or you go into a job, right? And as you go into the job, just like Trish said, you see all of these, you know, as a man, you see all of these opportunities. As a woman, you see what's she doing, what's she doing, what's she doing, how can I get potentially her job?
Right.
Why are we not walking in and saying, I can have all of these jobs? These are all available to me. And what that means is, at that point, we then, and this is the reason I call it split the vote there, because then we open the door for somebody to come right in the middle, anytime it's a man,
Right.
and
Interesting.
at that point, we no longer have that opportunity.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because we do that to ourselves.
Mhm.
So how can we encourage other people, you know, within
See, I
various
didn't-
professions?
Yeah, I worked for a company and I had some really horrible bosses, and then I
Right.
started my own company at 25. And I
Right.
think that those, you know, there's like,
Right.
there's that, there's a part, there's those people, and I think, and I want to encourage more people. That's why
Right.
as other businesswomen, I fully support another person, whether you want to be a homemaker, which by the way is a job.
It is a job.
It is a job. I had someone
Absolutely.
tell me I'm just a homemaker. I said, girl, don't put just on that. You
Yeah,
cannot
no,
put
it's
just on
right.
that. That's a
Right.
good job.
Yeah.
Real job.
And you know, I mean, or whether you don't have kids and you want to pursue your dreams, I mean, all of that. And you know, all these expectations: have a child, get married. I mean, it's what do you? I think we're just not going to women and saying, really, what do you want with your life?
I'm also seeing, I taught Pilates, private Pilates, for a long, long time to all kinds of women. And what the troubling thing that I saw is that women are not taking charge of their finances and understanding they have to manage their money, they should have their own bank accounts. They're merging, and made this mistake myself when I was married. I merged my money with my ex-husband. I did not have my own finances. And I really hate seeing women get divorced and end up with nothing. They've sacrificed their careers for kids, and they've sacrificed so much to empower their husbands to have careers, or you know, so they can watch and raise the children, and then everything crumbles and they're left with nothing. And I think one of the things that women do not talk about enough is, how do you manage your money? How do you save? How do you budget? No one ever taught me this, and it's a real big problem for me. I don't know anything about finances, and I've had to really figure this out myself.
Right.
And that kind of scares me, but I'm scared for a lot of women too, because I don't think that we're very uncomfortable talking about money.
Right.
We're very uncomfortable talking about how much money do you make. I mean, I like to know. I'm curious how where people fall in income and whatnot, and how do you save and live. And I'm always really impressed when women have their financial life in order, because that to me is a quality I want in myself.
Right, and those are some good skills, that we need to be, out there teaching other women, because that also empowers
It does.
other women.
It really
It really does.
Yeah, and I think what this really gets down to is what are we modeled as children? So in one way I was very fortunate because my mother really told me, flat out, do not trust anyone. You have to be independent. And I did, but it wasn't for the right reasons. It wasn't because I was independent and empowered. It was out of fear. I was
Right.
afraid that I would be in her situation. And that gave me the motivation to learn about finances, put myself through college. But at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I was very lonely. It was only until I got all my girlfriends together and we talk about everything under the sun. We do talk about salaries because we can pinpoint your boss is not valuing you.
Right. Right.
And I think we're taught don't talk about money
Right.
because they don't want us to have the information
They
to
don't.
tell us.
Yes.
That's how we went so
exactly.
long, knowing we weren't getting done as much.
Right.
But then we
Good
have
point.
the different spectrum on social media where you got the girl coming out the Bentley as
Yeah.
if that's real
Right.
life.
Yes,
You know,
right.
I mean, I'm
Right.
just so thrilled from Rodeo Drive where you've got just people, the selfie stick and everything and the whole
Right.
illusion.
Right.
And people putting up all this, stuff that makes other people pine and desire and think, what am I doing wrong because I don't have that, but it's not real. I mean,
Right,
half
right.
There's shown pictures of people who fake get on a jet.
Right.
They're not really on a jet.
Lifestyle
and
marketing.
it's that
Exactly.
lifestyle
Right.
marketing.
Yeah.
Lifestyle
Exactly.
marketing. And what's a facade?
Exactly.
And so, and again, I go back as somebody who has been in the clinical field, as a doctor of psychology, I go back to never compare yourself to anybody else. And really, that's really hard though in today's society because of that lifestyle marketing and what is real and being able to, separate the reality from what's not real.
Sure.
You know?
And I think body image, the way we paint the woman's body, and
Right.
how women age, and that you're supposed to, men age a certain way, but we're not supposed to really age. And I've seen women be very hard on themselves and the way they talk about themselves and their bodies, and that I really like to uplift women and find their good qualities and encourage them with that, because the self-talk, the tapes
Right.
that we play in our heads are
Perhaps.
really negative.
Great
you know?
points.
Yeah.
All great points. So let's move on to the next question, because we are approaching Thanksgiving, and I want to give thanks to the women that came before us. So the question I have to ask all of you is, who might have influenced you throughout history? Which women kind of resonate their ideology? Who would you say, you can identify as that person? I like what she had to say. I like what she did in community. I like how she embraced other women or helped. Who would that be for you?
Maya Angelou.
Okay.
Maya Angelou. I read her book from a jail cell at 18 years old, and it changed my life because I realized that somebody else had shared their story and that it wasn't perfect. And that she had made mistakes, and I didn't know much about her, but I knew she had sworn in Clinton, I think, or was about to swear in Clinton, and I was like, okay, if this is what she's capable of after all of this, then I have hope. And that woman changed my life, because for the first time somebody shared a less than perfect story, and I saw that they were still successful and helped others and became such a legendary, iconic woman in her community and around the world, of course.
Right.
We just talked about her.
Right.
We did. I got to meet her when I was in college, and she actually she came. I was working in a pharmacy, and she needed a prescription, and I almost lost. I mean,
Yeah,
I was going to lose
name
my
and
shit
all that.
right there, right? And I'm like,
Yes.
That's amazing.
right? And I really regret not, because I read her book. I was in the 10th grade, and it resounded with me very similarly.
Yes.
And I regret not having said it, because I feel like that would have been one of the only people in the world who would have cared that I actually, that would have taken that in and really liked the fact that I was sharing that with her.
Right.
But it's a missed opportunity, but at least I got to shake her hand and be like,
That's
Wow,
amazing.
Right.
it's like
Yes,
royalty.
that is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's I know. I'm in Hollywood. I see actors and actresses. I'm like, oh, you're cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my
Well, I think mine is for a similar reason, although such a different sort of genre, right? But I was actually talking about this earlier. I think Ellen DeGeneres,
Yes.
way more
Yes.
seen.
Yes.
She risked her career. She
Yes.
lost her show. And I remember when that happened, and I remember the uproar because I grew up in a very conservative small town, and it was like, what? Well, why would you announce that on TV? It's her own fault. Like let whatever's going to happen to her happen to her. And now look at her because
Right.
she stayed true to herself.
Right.
She is in honor and integrity to who she is.
Right.
And I just absolutely admire that.
I love her. I love
I
her.
agree.
I just, yeah. Anybody else? Well,
I know this sounds really lame, but I really did have a very good role model in my mom.
Right.
I grew up very, very poor, and I watched my mom, who did not have a college degree, work her way up the corporate ladder, and at the same time, when she found success, she started a women's peer group to empower other women in New York City, to help them with careers and mentor them. And she had a strong group of women who all support each other and then wanted to help other women in New York that were not like doing as well and that needed to get their careers going. And at the same time, I also watched her go through sexual harassment. In a male-oriented world, she also became the first female president of the British American Chamber of Commerce, which was completely, unheard of, and the only person elected 2 terms. But then at the same time, for her not to have a college degree was a big chip on her shoulder, and she ended up becoming a commencement speaker and get an honorary degree at a college. So, just to have someone like that, we were paying $200 a month rent, we had 1 bathroom, she was always taking in kids, that didn't have anywhere to go. So, I think I looked right in my backyard for my mentor, but it was somebody that really inspired me to help other women.
thank you. Fantastic. That's awesome.
And for me, I interweave characteristics from the women I know. So, my grandmother, she was not perfect, but she was a survivor of abuse when she was a child. She became an alcoholic, and even though she didn't have a good relationship with her family, she was a safe haven for me as a child. And as an adult, I could understand her flaws, but I could also understand her strengths. The same thing with my mother, the same thing with some of my other family members, but the point is, no one has to be perfect for me to find something worthwhile in
Oh, I
them.
love that.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
And I have to say, so it's very odd that you say that and wonderful at the same time, because when I was flying here yesterday, and I was coming from DC to California, I watched the Mr. Rogers show, like the biopic.
I'm dying to see
Okay,
that.
so
I'm really
it was
dying to see that.
fantastic. And I go back to what you just said, because he said, you don't have to do anything sensational for me to care about you.
Oh, I love that.
Is that beautiful?
It is.
And I want to say, you don't have to do anything sensational for us to embrace you here at Core Women, because we are women who care. We are women who want to reach out and inspire.
And we're all
and
flawed.
uplift. We're all, we
I
all
like
have
that.
flaws,
I like
right?
to say perfect.
Right.
Well,
and
and-
perfect.
yes.
But then there are these there are other notorious women. Maybe Trish, you want to
Yeah,
mention?
well, I think that's an excellent example. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is someone who never wanted attention, and I really identify with that. The fact that I'm here is killing me.
Thank you, Trish, for being here. I appreciate it.
I'm enjoying it. But she's somebody who's she has her ideals, and she's just fought for them her whole life.
Right.
And she's fought for the rights of women, the equality of women, and in a quiet way. It was, I know she's been on the Supreme Court for a long time, but I didn't know what she had done before then until very recently, which was critical to us gaining equality in the workplace and in other places as well. And so, especially as an attorney, I really identify with that, and I think that she's fabulous and hope she lives forever.
Me too.
Right. I know. So, there's so many wonderful women, and yet all of us sitting here are also wonderful, and we can do things and make movement in the community, and we can inspire. And
Well,
that's
we are.
absolutely, we absolutely are. And so, thank you for pointing that out, because we absolutely are. And so, from that, I would have to say that, when I think about the people who have inspired me, and by no means are these people sensational or, they've done these magnificent things, but what they did for me specifically was, as I grew up, my mother was a very independent woman. Not to say that she hasn't had her issues. She has, and we all have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but she used to say, you know what, Summer, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And one of the things that she did say is, you are beautiful. You are beautiful, and you can do whatever. I don't care what you do. If you're an A, B, or C, just be happy doing what you're doing. Because that will make a difference. That will impact people. And for me, follow your heart. And she truly meant it. Because even to this day, she's like, you know what, I just love you. I love you so much. And yet we've had
motherless daughter.
But you
share your mom with us.
But you know what? Okay, you know what? I have to tell you that, when I went off to college, she changed very much. And she had
menopause?
No, it was called drugs.
Oh.
And so those came into the picture. And with that said, her character in her heart is still there, but the person has changed somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, and like I said, I remember back when when I was going to high school and what she said and how she supported me, and that made a difference because it made me know that I could go out and I could help other people.
Yeah.
I could lift them up as well. So I can name somebody like a character in a book or somebody who wrote a book, which they're great, and many of those. But I really have to give some kudos to my mom because she really did say, you can really do anything you want to do, and you go out and go. And she made me work at 15 and a half. And I resented that, right?
Of course.
Because it was like I went to a private school with all these kids who you didn't have to work. And she's like, no, you're going to work. You're going to know what a work ethic means.
And now
And
you're
now-
so grateful.
Oh, totally, right?
Yeah.
Right? So all of these people are amazing, and they're doing wonderful things in the community. So my next question is, what are the challenges you have confronted as empowered women, and how have you felt disempowered?
I'll share a story.
Okay.
I worked in production in New York, where I was going to Las Vegas or Orlando and producing a giant show for like Burger King, or where they introduce a new product to franchisees, and they spend $1 million on the set and staging and set design and talent. I mean, it's like a Broadway show for 48 hours. And I was working with a company, and the CEO is a privately held company, and the CEO was knocking on my door drunk in the middle of the night, right before I was supposed to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get on the headset, and just be ready to roll. I've never been so terrified in my life. It was so haunting to me that I was in that position. I was angry that he wasn't knocking on some guy's door instead of mine. I mean, why was that happening to me?
Right.
And then I questioned, what did I wear today? Did I say something wrong? Was it, did I do, it's just all those things were running through my head. And then I sat right on the ground by the door and did not move in my room. And I said, how many other women have been in this position? And this has to change.
Right.
I just
Right.
was horrified. And I felt embarrassed for him, being in the position he was in, to do that to me.
But yet you felt embarrassed for him. You felt
I did.
embarrassed for
The
him.
next day I was like,
and
shame
yet-
on you.
And yet, you were feeling disempowered. You were feeling scared. You were feeling nervous. You were
Fired.
questioning yourself. Yes, and then there is that balance, that imbalance of power. So it's like, so what do you do? What do you do? What do you do as a human being when you're confronted with difficulty like that?
And
How do
hashtag
you-
not okay.
And
Come on.
right,
I mean,
right.
But
Like
you know
my
that-
friends and I hashtag you too.
Yeah.
That's the thing
yeah.
I go around
yeah.
saying guys who act inappropriately as they say
Hashtag
you
you
too.
too.
Hashtag you too.
You too.
Like,
And,
Yeah.
and
go
yet,
along with
and,
that.
Yeah.
and yet we shouldn't be scared. We shouldn't
No.
be questioning
And I
things
was
like
really
what were we
scared.
wearing, or what were we doing, or what is it our fault?
That's where we've got to tell women and let them know.
Right.
I mean, men, I love men, but oh my goodness, they're boys forever in some cases. And I mean,
Well, that's
working
no
in Hollywood
excuse,
as well, my
yeah.
husband is an executive producer. He's done some films, and we travel the world with film festivals. Harvey Weinstein, of course, was a big name in
Yes.
in Cannes, and
Right.
you know, I mean,
Yes.
we it's talk amongst the industry of how it was seen, how it was women knew, but you know, and yet the guys, they don't say anything because it's this brotherhood of, well, you just don't say anything.
Well, I hope that's
And
changing now.
Right.
honestly.
And I think we have to, I also think we have to, you know, Trisha and I were talking about this yesterday. We have to embrace men. And,
Oh, exactly.
and because Core Women is about women and
Yes.
inspiring, but we also want to embrace men because we don't want to make them part of the problem. We
Yeah.
want to make them part of the
And
solution,
I'm the mother
right?
of all boys, and I really,
Worry, probably.
I also look at them and say, you are going to be good citizens and good men, and lead your life with integrity. And I took that job very seriously, being the mother of boys.
Right.
I mean, I addressed a lot of the things that are going on in college campuses with date rape in my book. Like, now a drunk girl, that's an opportunity to rape her instead of take care of her.
Right.
Or if a girl's wearing sexy clothes, that doesn't mean she wants to be raped. You know,
She just wants to feel good about
Right.
herself and
wear
feel,
what you
wear
want.
what she
and
wants.
so, and no means no. And I
Right.
you know, I think that we have to. I agree with you. Men are not the enemy.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
part of women empowerment. That is a little part that I kind of get a little miffed at when I see groups or organizations where they want to start excluding men. Okay, we cannot be inclusive if we start excluding
Right.
the other half.
Right.
What we need to do, and I think, we need to learn how to balance each other.
Right.
There is a balance, and I think that where men maybe feel we're disrespecting them or we're not appreciating their value, I'm never taking away the value of a man
Right.
as a man.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we can't. I always talk about this. So why before the revolution? Why before everyone decided to come over to the U.S., women were queens? Women
love this.
ruled,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, some guys
Yeah.
want to
No,
say
Right.
Okay, the girl with the dragon tattoo, right? Lisbeth Salander antagonizes men.
Mhm.
This is what some men put into the minds of others is going to happen if women have equality. That somehow we're going to be pulling off their private parts, right?
Right.
And that's not the goal.
Yeah.
All we want is to be able to own our own homes and buy our own cars and do the same things that men have been doing for years from an economic perspective and from a political perspective, right? But we can coexist.
Mhm.
And there's no antagonism about it.
Right.
So I think
Good point.
Well, I had my grandfather. Sorry, I just want to piggyback on it because my grandmother is so funny, and I learned this at a young age. When my grandfather passed away, they were very financially. They were great, but they'd always done everything in my grandfather's name. And after 30 plus years of marriage, when he passed away, she couldn't even go get a car financed because all they'd seen was a co-owner. They'd never seen an individual loan because these are my grandparents. Of course, they didn't do that. Now, most of us, I have my own credit cards, I have my own credit line. Because I learned that from her. This year she had money in the bank. She could buy her car cash if she wanted to,
Right.
but she could not get a loan. Nobody told me this. And then when she learned it, I was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I realized it was important to build my own name, and my own independence. And to this day, I love my husband. We have joint things, but I do keep a separate bank account. He knows with any guy telling me it's not like I'm hiding anything, but I have this separate,
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I always tell him I love you dearly, but God forbid something happened to you. I have to take care of these kids. I have to maintain the lifestyle, and that's a lot of pressure for women.
Right.
When you really think about it. Some women are blasé. I'm not blasé.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about our backgrounds.
And I think it's an interesting conversation of having men be allies. Having men as allies is very important, but I think the missing piece of the conversation is, when do men see us as true allies? Are we just workhorses? Do we just prepare their meals? When do they actually see us as equals? And I'm in a lot of conversations because, social justice is one of my passions, and I had a recent conversation where, it's, a man with a golden heart, and he was saying with all of the business with Kavanaugh, he hopes that women will see him as an ally. And I said, that is an amazing thing for you to say, but I need you to go a step further and think about the fact that you still have that choice to weaponize your masculinity at any choice. Just as I, as a white woman, I could weaponize my whiteness against someone of color. That's not my intention, but at any point I have that privilege. And I really challenge him to step up and feel that power dynamic. And it's just very funny. It's like, yeah, we want men to be our ally. It's like, we could also be men's allies, but there's so much fear.
Right. And then how do we, and a lot of times, and this happens in many different aspects of life, you know, you tell somebody, go out and, you know, change your way of eating. Go out and change your exercise routine. They're like, okay, I'm feeling pumped up. I feel great about this. They get home and, well, that's part of it. Why? Because we just set them up for failure.
Right.
Why? Because we didn't tell them step by step by step or engage and collaborate about the steps that they could actually take to succeed. Because, right, exactly. It's in phases, but also you don't just send somebody out there not knowing what to do. So it is incumbent upon us, again, which isn't a bad thing, to tell step or collaborate step by step by step about how we can effectively work together. Right? And what does that mean? You know, and how do we start that ball rolling? And that's a continued conversation we need to have. This is the other thing. You know, when we talk about the Me Too movement, which I think is fantastic, my only issue with it is after the marches, what do we do next? Where is the movement? Where is the driving force behind the movement? Where do we keep these women and these men all like excited about, okay, this is the next step. Next steps are important. And that's why, you know, as a strategic empowerment coach, we talk about next steps. We talk about a strategic plan. We talk about goals. We talk about objectives to meet those goals. We talk about timelines. We talk about how we can motivate and how we can drive change. Because we have to continue having the conversation, but making forward movement. So the objectives are important, right?
Sure.
So how do we create objectives to meet certain goals?
And one thing I always found really helpful was we can talk about all of our wins and all the times that we met our goals, but what do we do with the failures and when we miss it? Because I think there's a lot of tension, like we don't want to admit that we did something wrong, but when people share with me how they kind of messed up, I'm like, finally, someone I can relate to.
No,
There's
there's no success without failure.
Exactly.
And you
I got
learn the
so-
most from your failures.
I got so many rejection letters from literary agents when I was trying to get my book published. And then I found out in my opinion, The Help is one of the greatest books ever written from a structural standpoint. And she had gotten some like 65 agent rejections before she got that book published. And every time I got a no, I knew that I had to just try harder, work harder, polish. I took the negative and for the first time in my life, I took that and made it a positive and tried to not look at it as, oh, they said no, now I'm a failure. You know?
J.K. Rowling.
Right.
So she got rejected, and
Right.
so did the Twilight books got rejected. And
But I have something to say about that. Like again, you know, it's going to sound like, again, I never put my book out for a publisher. I didn't care. I didn't need a publisher to validate my book. I knew my book was good, and I knew how to market it, and I knew that I would be able to do something with it. So I didn't put the power in someone else's hands. So, and I learned that from business and accepting the no's, but also knowing, okay, that's a no, but that just means not right now or not that way, and let me figure out the way that will. And especially with writing, and I think since we're writers, self-publishing has much less of a taboo on it. Irish doesn't, you know, it's not like it once was, and I mean, being published or not published doesn't matter. If your book is out there and people are reading it and people are being empowered or people being, inspired, then, you know, like I talk about my books, I write fiction that matters. I write with a purpose. I don't just sit down to write. I write because even the books I'm writing now, like they have a purpose and they have a very deep message that's relevant to everything we're going on in our world right now. That's important. I'm not going to give someone else the power to, you know, and so I would say that, like, for people who are looking to drive themselves forward, you don't always have to put it in other people's hands. I've always been the person to push and make my way forward.
And I think that there's a way that we can still, even if whether we want to pursue traditional publishing or self-publish, which I'm so glad is losing some of the stigma, right? But I think that, like, I read this from multiple writers now, a couple different women who said they created a contest for themselves, and they said, I'm going to, like, they went in competition with each other, and they said, how many rejections can we get? I'm going to beat you. And what that does is it takes some of the pressure off of it being like, well, I know I'm going to get rejections. How can I turn this into a win? And I think that is huge, like flipping. I wrote an article about this.
Some people do that in
There-
business.
there's a
I've seen
Facebook-
people do that in business
There's
too.
a Facebook
On the way
page
to
for
get
people,
nervous.
for writers to post their bad reviews, like the worst
Right.
reviews they've gotten, and just like, and they're kind of funny, and just like, and I did an Instagram story. I have 3 people that gave me a 1-star rating on my book, and I was like, you know what? It's not all puppies and balloons over here.
Right. Yeah.
There's 3 people that gave me a 1
Yeah.
star, and you know what? They have the right to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that they stepped up and rated my book. They,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, what's ironic about that is I remember my editor telling me that those bad ratings actually make you go up.
Yeah.
It's
And you
Oh,
got
yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was laughing. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, have someone go intentionally put a negative thing. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah.
You're like, I'm a perfectionist.
So, with all this said, Thursday night prior to coming here, I went to see Sarah Poticha. She is one of the first women to graduate from West Point.
wow.
Right?
That's so cool.
So I went to go see her speak. She's actually going to be on my podcast as well. And what she said is, failure is when you really learn.
Yes. Absolutely.
She had to put a rucksack on with 40 pounds on her. She was 99 pounds, and they had to do these things where you'd squat in a pool and lift up, go down, lift up, go down, lift up. And when she jumped in the pool at 98 pounds, she went like this.
Right.
And she just fell back, and she's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm going to fail this.
Right.
And so what she ended up doing is figuring out technique because she couldn't breathe. She couldn't get enough air to get back up, and she was getting here, right? So what she did is she went all the way down, swam with the pack, then jumped up, got the breath, and the guy said, we never saw anybody do it that way. And she's like, you figure it out and you overcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you know what? I was like, way to go. She's like, but you know what? When you ask somebody, what did you learn? It's usually from a failure.
Oh, of course.
Because if they're winning all the time, or if they're, succeeding all the time, you don't remember that as much as when you failed. And so
Exactly.
how did you
and in our
overcome?
social media age, we don't promote our failures.
Right.
Like, you were just talking about
Right.
the 1 stars.
I know, actually, I know.
People don't. It's all about, oh, this wonderful thing happened to
Right.
me, or
Yeah.
this other
Right.
wonderful thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not every day.
And we
is
have to
perfect.
laugh at
Right.
ourselves, not
Right.
take everything so seriously. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean,
Right.
so what? Somebody didn't like my book. That's not a personal attack on me.
Right.
It's a matter of opinion, and I just have to be,
The thing about that is you have to, if you are trying to please everyone, you're not being authentic to
No.
yourself. And if you're being
Right.
authentic to yourself, not everybody's going to like you, but
Mhm.
that's the better place to be because you're going to resonate more deeply with the people who do like it than just kind of being very vanilla, right?
Yeah,
And just
right.
being kind of, that's how I see it.
That's
I
true.
totally
And
agree,
you
yeah.
can't please everyone. You cannot please everyone. And I know even with my own social media presence and what I take on my journey that I take on, I make sure people understand, it's about friends, not followers. I'm not
Yes.
worried about how many likes I'm getting on a picture. This is not indicative of my life. And so many people, that's where social media has done wrong. It's done a phenomenal job of bringing us together. But, it's so true. And that's why I do showcase my failures too and things that are not perfect in my life. Because the person that then thinks that nothing goes wrong in your life, like the woman who told me the other day, oh, it's so nice to know that something, that you could be part of this. And like, even when you said with businesses, for 20 years, I
Right.
owned retail businesses.
Right.
And I've lost thousands of dollars. I learned location is everything. I learned you
Right.
want parking. I learned all those little
Absolutely.
things.
Access to freeway, access to buses. I mean,
Well, not in
there's-
LA, you don't have access
Right.
to like, we literally had to turn down the location for that.
But in San Diego, you could
Yeah.
potentially, it's, it varies, but
Yeah.
the factors
I
are
know.
such that, you know what I mean?
I
So
do know, I know.
You need to look, no, absolutely. But it's, as women, we need to, understand as well that, there are days when people aren't having the best of them,
Yeah.
right? And so how do we still, because I'm not saying we can save everybody because that's not what we can do, right?
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I
'cause
was
they'll
going
burn
to say
out.
when I don't feel empowered.
Right?
Because a lot of friends in my cancer community, you can't take a magic wand. I have people who reach out to me who are sleeping in cars, people who are going through surgeries, people who are fighting for their life.
I can't just say, you'll get through this,
Yeah.
you know,
Right,
because
right.
that's not always, you know, I've sat there with somebody who knows that they're going to die and have to determine where their kids are going to go.
Right.
What do they tell their kids? And then someone say, well, God's got them in their hands. Well, now that's true. But that's not the answer, because we have real issues, we have real things we want to think about and plan for, and we can't because we're only human and we can't control everything.
But I think
But
that's
I don't
about
have-
philanthropy. Like, if you can find one philanthropy or one cause that you're really passionate about, in which you feel like you can create some kind of change, it helps ease a little bit of the pain of what you're talking
But
about.
it
At
hurts
least for
because
me.
you can't fix it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
just-
but I think that's a big issue that we're facing in terms of women's empowerment altogether.
Right.
We're fractionalized because we're focused on too many things, which in our lives we work. We're the ones taking care of the kids. We're the ones taking care of the house. That's how we live our lives. And so that's how we apply the rest, apply to everything. But then that's also kind of an impediment to, as a group, just moving forward.
But I also think that then we have to learn how to set boundaries.
Mhm.
You know, we have to learn how to set boundaries.
Yes.
We have to learn how to say, I am important and I matter. And when we do that kind of stuff, we think about, you know, that means taking time for ourselves. That means taking a breather. That means giving that extra duty to somebody else in your life that can help support you and feeling okay with that.
But also managing the intense backlash you will get, because I
When a woman says no, it's like, wait, what?
Exactly.
No,
Because
it's in a
then-
job, it's in a personal, and it's in a professional arena.
I
Absolutely.
recently resigned from a job, and I was seen as not doing well because I did not fix every single issue that they had, and I came in going, that's not my job.
Yeah.
And I looked at my life saying, I don't want to work 10 hours a day. I don't want to earn much less than I know other people are earning because I value myself more. And is this the job I actually want now? And I had to give up a dream I once had and actually make my future my dream and say, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And I did get backlash.
Right.
And the thing was, I just put myself first. And that was the first time I ever did, because I've always taken care of everyone else.
Right.
And it was really difficult.
Yeah, it becomes difficult and it becomes a challenge. And I think those are some of the skills that, you know, we possess, but we aren't utilizing in the best ways.
That's why
You know
in
what
the
I mean?
airplane they say, put your mask on first.
Right.
Because if you're not, and I always said that to my kids, if I'm not happy and I'm not doing well, I'm feeling good about everything around me, then it's gonna resonate
Yeah.
with the way I'm my home with
Right.
you and how they feel, like, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Who takes care of you when you
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We do. We
Yeah.
take
That's
absolutely
what
care of
we do.
ourselves.
Self-care.
If she lets
Yeah.
So my last question here this evening, and you know, these answers have been so rich and so inspiring and so encouraging, and we brought up a lot of different things tonight. But think about this: how are you? Like, who helped you? Who inspired you personally? Not just, you know, but who in your life has inspired you, and how are you going to use that, take that into the world, and inspire others?
So I've been inspired by women who have passed on from cancer. I have one in particular who taught me, literally the day she died, that not to waste time that others wish they had. Her and I had a son that our sons were about the same age, and I flew up to see her literally 24 hours before she died in Seattle, as a matter of fact, for the day. And when I came back, she died less than 24 hours later. Every night for months that I would kiss my son goodnight, I would start crying. I couldn't even get through singing him a little song. I was a mess. And I was very, very depressed. And then about a month and a half into it, I realized she would have been pretty stinking ticked off at me for laying around, being sorry, and not living life when I knew she would give anything to live again. And so those people in my life that have gone before me have taught me that every single moment I am here, whether it's one, whether it's another 40 years, matter, and that I can make a difference, and I treat them well because of that.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to do the taboo answer and say, you know, honestly, myself. And it's a taboo answer because I don't think I was raised with any kind of understanding that you need to give yourself kudos and you need to toot your own horn. I never toot my own horn. But the fact of the matter is, I took care of my grandmother when she was sick as a child. I babied my mother. I made sure she didn't, die in her sleep with alcohol. I kicked creepy men out of the house. I raised my younger sister. I reported creepy men in my neighborhood who were trying to kidnap me. I fought and fought and fought. I got myself through college on my own. I, lived on my own with my own apartment in Seattle for 7 years. And I did all this stuff and I never gave myself credit, which I actually attribute to the burnout I experienced last year. I was completely burnt out. And I'm turning a new leaf saying, no, I am worth giving myself credit. And I can inspire myself, even if I don't get it right 100% of the time.
You're your
And
own
that's
hero.
okay. Yay, Catherine! Yay! I love that answer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's really
I
important
love that.
that we hear that, because I don't think we give ourselves enough, rah kudos, because we do a lot
Right.
and we help a lot and we go through our own struggles. And yet sometimes we try and mask that and be that happy person and, say, and many times people forget about us too, because we are so happy and we're getting things done and we're accomplishing our goals, that they're like, oh, that person's okay. I need to help the squeaky wheel.
Oh my gosh,
You
you know
know,
how many
and
times
so-
people tell me, well, you look great. I have 2 autoimmune diseases. I've fought cancer 3 times. And they're like, but you look fantastic.
You
I'm
do,
like,
by the way.
Oh, come on, girl, you know.
That's not helping me.
That's not the story.
But it's so true. And I actually, a lot of times I do take pride in saying, look, yes, in some sense I say this is a mask. Like what I do, I put on the face and I put on the smile, but I'm very honest about what I'm dealing with behind the scenes so that people understand we are enough, especially with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, whether it's race or, sex in particularly. I mean, you've got people treating each other badly for all these different reasons, and you have a lot of people questioning, well, where's my place in this world? We are enough. I did a campaign, I am enough, we are enough. We are beautiful, we are strong, we are survivors, we're vibrant, we're full of life. And I think that men love it, but then they also my own husband, I love him, and I'm just gonna throw him under the bus a little bit. I say this because I love him. He's a very, very good man. He's actually the one who told me, write your book. He was, because I was kind of, I'm gonna write a book, and then he's like, well, babe, why don't you write the book? And I was like, no, because maybe nobody wants to read it. And he was like, no, he's like, you should write the book. And then I wrote the book, and then everything else that's come along with it. Now he's like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
There's a little bit of part of him that's like, well, wait, is the baby going to get enough of your time?
Right.
What's for
Right.
dinner?
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I got some laundry to do.
What
That's
did you
fine.
do?
I know. And I've turned that on my husband. The question every night is, what are you going to cook, honey?
Right.
And I said, because I work till 3 a.m. sometimes, and I'm up and and he's like, well, I don't have the menu today, but I will figure something out. I'm like, excellent.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
I love
That's
when
a
my
great
husband
answer.
says he'll cook.
Oh, my husband cooks all the time. All the
I
time.
just say that to say, even
Right.
him, the reality of wife and mom going out and living her life, as I said, these are the things I want to do. He's supportive, but yet he's a little jealous of the time it takes away. And I really had to have a lot of communication with him on that. Look, you're still number one. I love you. But guess what? So am I.
Right.
I'm number one too. And I have a bigger purpose than, I take the purpose of being your wife, a big one, but it's not all of who I am.
Right.
And a lot of women do that. That's all they do.
Yeah.
Be the wife, be the mom, cook the dinners, clean the tea. I mean, I'm
Right.
part of a Middle Eastern culture. I'm half white and half Middle Eastern. And I've seen men finish with their plate and the wife come up and take it. Okay, I'll go bring it. And I'm familiar with that. And in some sense, I get that,
Right.
believe it or not, because I'm a server too. But
Right.
I also want to serve myself and enjoy life. So
And you should. and
I
we
say
should.
that it's not people want to make women feel bad for going out and pursuing their dreams. Sometimes,
Right.
and even sometimes your partners,
Right.
even if they were
Absolutely.
a little
And
bit supportive.
and that's not horrible, because it's just a re-education.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
think that's important, is we have to keep in mind that sometimes, even as somebody who is of mixed race, I've had to realize and really turn the conversation around into, I'm sitting by this man, he just doesn't, and he, somebody has said, I don't really care for you. I don't care for your kind of people. I'm like, do you know what my kind of people are? Like, what do you think I am? And he's like, well, what are you? And so then I sit, and I don't, I've learned not to get overly offended by that. So I'll sit there and I actually take time to educate.
Exactly.
Because now he's going to go away and he's going to feel so much better, and he's going to look at the next person who might look like me or resemble me and say, hey, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, because I've done my job. I've educated somebody today. So again, going back to the question, who in your life, has impacted you, and how are you going to take that forward and impact somebody else and lift them up and inspire?
I think the same as what Jen said earlier. My mom has been a huge inspiration to me. I also have autoimmune diseases, so let's talk.
That's right.
Yeah. So, with my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She sacrificed so much of, she didn't go to school until much later in life. She didn't have a career outside the home. She had 4 kids. And she, back then we couldn't have gluten. I still can't have gluten, but there was not the kind of options like there are now in stores. And so she would make these, breads and muffins and things like that from scratch. She ground rice flour because it wasn't readily available, things like that. And so for me, it's just a huge inspiration from my mother for, empowering her kids and recognizing in a time when everyone else was kind of doubting. People were like, oh, you're faking it, right?
Yeah.
And she also encouraged us creatively. We homeschooled a lot, and she just kind of gave us the freedom to, sit down and pursue the interests that we had at the time. And so I discredit her for so much of my ability to sort of think outside the box and just be like, it's okay to be different. It's okay to, pursue what we are very, passionate and interested in, kind of not go the traditional route. So I definitely credit her with that. And, I hope that in my coaching, in my own coaching practice, in my writing, that I am doing the same thing. I write about my autoimmune disease. I share my story, and I hope that it's just showing other people that they can do, set their intentions and think outside the box, and they don't have to follow the traditional path. And I definitely credit.
And you can
my
still
mom.
thrive.
Absolutely.
We can still thrive.
Right.
We have bad days,
Oh yeah.
Right.
but rough days. But we can still have good days.
Absolutely.
And you give me hope, by the way, because I'm homeschooling my 2 kids, and it's funny because now we sit there and we literally go over building a business, like we go over marketing, supply and demand. I'm going over, they're 11 and 13, and I'm having them do TED Talks and give me essays on like TED Talks.
Okay, great.
I've got
And so you're utilizing, what's out there, and they're applying that, and then they can use those practical skills to do some other things, right?
Yes.
So, anybody else?
I would have to say my daughter. And my daughter because, one, she gave me perspective. There was a time when, I thought my kid had to go to Harvard. That was the only way that they were going to succeed. And so there was a very strict path that she had to follow. And as she grew, and she's 18 now, I realized that she wasn't going to follow the path necessarily that I had chosen for her. And that was okay. And that it was also okay for me to deviate for the path that I had seen for myself in certain ways. So it humanized me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And she's very, very different than I am, and identifies a lot of different ways than I do. And so just seeing her, she set a great example for me. And so in that, I wanted to set a good example for her. I love being a single woman. And in our society, that's really not okay all the time. Mm-hmm. And I want to show her that it is. And it's okay that I can live like a man, and I can support myself and do my thing and have my place, and just this is what you can do. And hopefully that inspires other women to do it too, if that's what they want, because it's okay.
Right. And you can live like a woman. That's okay, right, absolutely.
There's something that you both have said. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
no.
That, and I why? Because you said something that's so true, and I think we need to let other women know that your minds will change. The things I thought when I was 18,
Oh,
the things I
absolutely.
thought when I was 25,
Right.
the things I thought when I was 30,
Oh, absolutely.
they change. And you said something, and I've actually subscribed to that, but I learned that my dreams change. But my dreams were once a dream, and that's okay. And I just have a new dream.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's not that I've given something up. Like when I talked about I went to law school, but I'm not a failure because I chose not to practice law. I just decided I had a different dream.
Right.
And I pursued that. And so I think when we're in our 20s and especially when we're younger, we're super passionate, and we're super ideal, and we're like, and then we don't realize we're going to change. You know, ladies,
Oh, yeah.
we are going to change,
Right.
we're going to evolve, hopefully.
Right.
Hopefully for the best. But I mean, regardless, you will change. The person you are at 18, you will not be 20 years later.
Right. No, and that's,
Hopefully not.
and that's very true, because when I, got married at 24, as a military spouse, people don't think like, oh, the military, they've got maid, they've got housing, they've got this. My husband went to war. I had to get my degrees as we moved. I was engaged in life, but I did make some sacrifices because I had a goal for myself. I was going to go into law school. Yeah, I did that, but I decided that wasn't for me. But then I was like, I want to get a master's degree. I want to get a PhD. I want to do all these things. But I have to live within these confines because I'm part of now a subculture, the military. And what that means is you have to bend in certain ways because you have to move every so often. You have to do A, B, and C, right?
Well, as a former military wife, you are not number one. The military is.
Right. And so,
and
yet,
you're not second to the military.
Exactly. And that is the motto. And so the thing is, as you said, when you're young, you're like, ooh, you know what? This is so exciting. I'm going to do A, B, and C. So after 20 plus years of being a military spouse, you're like, okay, did that really work out the way I And I had a lot of energy.
Right.
I had a lot of energy at 24.
That changes.
And this is another way you talk about it, because they've got a lot of wisdom.
Nope.
They've got a lot of
Pajamas.
pajamas.
Don't touch
But they
strawberries.
can talk about, what it's like too. Again, we've all been through it, but they're, going through different things right now, and yet we're all, part of this process and this journey, and it's so important. Anyway, so like I said, you get to 40 plus. What? Yeah, 40 plus. Right. And you start and you look at that and you say, you know what? I'm not sure I have the energy to do that goal anymore, but I'm going to do it a different way.
Right.
This is what I'm going to do.
And
This
I
is how I'm
think
gonna create
what
something
you were
for myself.
saying about your daughter being your inspiration and that kind of. I mean, I absolutely love hearing that. And you also realize that she may not take the same path as you, or she may not be want to go in like Ivy League or whatever. And that to me really resonated because I think my boys actually have inspired me to chase a dream very late in life. I wrote a book after work at night. Took me 5 years. They watched me cry. They watched me, take a lot of rejection. And I remember cleaning my youngest son's car out and finding my business cards. Like he was giving them out to people, and I was just like, And I called my oldest son crying one night, and I was like, "What am I doing? Like, who do I think I am? I'm not a writer. Like, I don't know what I'm doing." And he was like, "Mom, you're gonna hang up the phone and you're gonna get back to it because this book is good, and this story has to be told." And I was like, "Really?" And it's interesting how the younger people can inspire someone, my age, but at the same time, I think I've inspired them to say it's never too late to chase your dreams. You can switch careers. You can create a new life yourself. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I loved hearing that your daughters.
Did everybody get a chance to?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm gonna say that, there were a couple of people that inspired me, and they were my mentors going through my master's program. So my clinical mentor and my administrative mentor who taught me how to do program management, organizational development, and then my other mentor who taught me how to do clinical counseling. And, I was doing an interview the other day, and as I was doing this interview, I started doing some self-reflection and going, wow, those people really impacted me, because now I mentor. I take on interns out in the community at the local university, Mary Washington University, and I go to that school and I take time out of my day because it's really important to give back to those students because, and you know, our director here, you know, same thing. I mean, I worked with him, you know, and he mentored me as I mentored him, and yet I'm still learning, right? And I'm hoping to teach them so they can take some practical skills and be able to apply that in their jobs and not feel so green and really, you know, work on themselves during that process. And that's exactly what I did, and that's what I learned from those women. So as I was doing that interview, I thought, you know what? Here's the journey. You know, they made me part of their journey. And now these students are going to be part of my journey, just as you are part of Core Women's journey. So I want to thank all of you for being here this evening, and I hope that the viewers can take what we've talked about tonight, you know, in relation to empowerment, inspiration, encouragement, and apply that and use that in community and inspire others. So ladies, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Have a great time. And thank you. Thank you for being with us at Core Women.